As if Texas A&M Texas wasn't a big enough matchup. You add playoff into the conversation, you add the SEC championship in the conversation, and that makes this game even more exciting. While the Longhorns aren't necessarily in that conversation, they are looking to pull off an upset. They're not in the SEC championship conversation, but the playoff technically is still alive. They do need a lot of help, but this is a team that is more than happy to ruin things for Texas A&M, who's undefeated. The Aggies have been an incredible team this year. Mike Elko deserves a ton of respect for what he's done with this program. I think people had concerns about Mike Elko when he took over for Jimbo Fisher, but also they had concerns more necessarily about the program than him. I think that he was a good coach that knew what he was doing, but even this seemed a little surprising. There weren't a ton of people that were expecting this team to be undefeated at this point, and they weren't expecting the players that have stepped up to do what they did. Marcel Reed is one of those guys. I think when you came into this year, Marcel Reed was someone that you expected to have a solid season, maybe not elite, especially not as a passer. He's completing nearly 62% of his passes, over 2,700 yards, 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. He's second on a team with 395 yards and 6 touchdowns rushing. So while he's not necessarily a Heisman winner, he's still having a good year. And as a passer, they needed him to have a good year. And the passing attack was the biggest question we had about this offense. We knew that the rushing attack was going to be good. We knew the offensive line was good. The running back room was deep. The wide receivers and the quarterback were the biggest questions. Now, Reed was the proven commodity of those two positions, but you wondered what he could potentially do as a passer. So you have to give Colin Klein a ton of credit for what he's done to be able to give Marcel Reed more confidence and call the right plays to put him in successful positions. You also have to give the wide receivers a lot of credit as well. Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver have been phenomenal. And this is a passing attack that has taken leaps and bounds because of them. You didn't necessarily know what you were going to get, and they have elevated their play. You've also had guys like Ashton Bethel Roman step up and be explosive as well. He's averaging nearly 25 yards per catch. So when it comes to this team, the biggest reason why they've had success is because their passing attack has taken their game to another level. You've seen guys that were question marks turn into proven assets and be able to produce at a high level. Same thing can be said about the defense. The defense had questions. The defensive line had a lot of questions. You lost 3 NFL draft picks. And I think the one thing we saw with that is that it felt like those NFL draft picks did not live up to the hype. They did not meet expectations. So there was a small minority of thinkers that thought, hey, maybe this group is actually going to be better. They're not going to rely on NFL talent. They're going to rely on guys that are hungry to prove they can be successful. Cassius Howell is one of those guys. And all he's done this year has been a menace to everybody he faces. He doesn't necessarily always get the sack or the tackle for loss, but he is a disruptive force that has been a nightmare to block. 26 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 11 and a half sacks. This front 6, front 7 for Texas A&M has been an absolute blast to watch. They've been so much fun. They're playing with the tenacity. They're playing with an energy that we frankly didn't see last year. They are playing like their hair is on fire and that they have chips on their shoulders. The secondary has also kind of echoed that. Des Ricks has been really fun to watch. Will Lee has been, I think, very good as well. That's a secondary that is going to fly around the field. And when it comes to Texas, whose passing attack has shown signs of life recently, the best way to disrupt him is to get to Arch Manning and be able to slow down that offense. This is a defense that can definitely do that. Now, when it comes to Texas, Texas has been playing very well in certain games as of recently. The Georgia game obviously is the exception. But last week against Arkansas, they were explosive. The problem is that their defense struggled. And the 2 games before the Georgia game, kind of the same thing. And that's not a formula that you're excited about, but at least the offense is showing that it has at least somewhat of a pulse to be able to win this game. Now, winning the game is going to be difficult. You are playing at home. That makes things a little bit different, but Arch Manning has to play better. Arch Manning has to be the player that we are seeing glimpses of. He's not the bust that everyone was talking about earlier in the year, but he also has room to grow. Over 2,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I think that he has work to do as a passer. I think he has work to do as a quarterback. But we're also seeing the glimpses of why he could be exciting. And if he can put that all together in one game, this is a great way to potentially go out for this season. Now, again, technically the playoff is not out of the question for Texas. And that's kind of annoying in a way, but at the same time, it's exciting because if Texas can show that they can beat Texas A&M, maybe they deserve a spot in the playoff. Maybe they deserve to be in that conversation when it comes to selection day. But it's going to be difficult. Arch Manning has to play like we have seen before. He has to be consistent. He has to get his playmakers the ball, and Texas has to find ways to get them in space. Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingstone have all shown various different things as wide receivers. And Wingo and Moore are very good in space. How do you get them the ball in space where they can make guys miss and create explosive plays? That's going to be a big question that I have for this team, and it'll be fun to see how they're able to make that happen. This is going to be a tough game. Even though you're at home, it's going to be tough. Texas A&M is a much different team than you've faced besides Georgia, and it's going to be a fun game to watch regardless. It's a rivalry game. These two teams do not like each other, and it's going to be intense. Texas A&M has a lot on line. Texas does have something to play for. Even though it's a small chance, they do have something to play for. And that's going to make this game even better. In terms of picking this game, I like Texas A&M. They're the more consistent team. They're going to cover. Marcel Reed takes care of business. Even though they're on the road, I trust this team more than I trust Texas. And for that reason, the Aggies are going to get the job done.